Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon if you're calling in from around the world. I think my mom's on this call, so good afternoon. Thanks for joining. We just realized 15 minutes ago we usually have some sort of premium account for Teams, which allows us to have like a green room and it just looks so polished. I think that expired, and so we need to renew it. So that's why you're seeing a whole bunch of other tiles up on the screen of other participants. We have almost 30 people here, which is really cool. I'm really excited to be joined by Kevin today. I've known Kevin since about October of last year. And I was recently on your farm a month or two ago, which was so cool. Being a city boy, getting out and seeing what it's actually like. And I got some cool pictures to show my friends, proof of life, and I was on some of the equipment. But I'm just really excited to go through this relationship that Heart for Africa and AgGrandize has started together. I'm just going to give it another 30 seconds for anybody else to join, and then we will start. Thanks for being here, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
Just a few more people coming in. Excellent. Okay, so just housekeeping things. Kevin and I are going to talk for about the next 30 minutes, just about some farming updates on Project Canaan, but also the model that AgGrandize has, which I'm really excited to talk to all of you about. If you have questions that come up, feel free to go up to the top of your screen. There's a Q&A button. You can click that and drop your questions in. There's also a chat feature, so if you have thoughts or questions, you could also use the chat as well. We're going to dive in. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Admit all. And first of all, thanks everyone for joining. Kevin, like I said, we've known you for a few months now. And what I'd like to start with is just a little bit of information on how did you end up on Project Canaan to begin with? Because it is quite miraculous that you found us in the first place.
Yeah, right. So how did a Kansas farmer end up in Eswatini? And it's not like you made a wrong turn and you just ended up in Eswatini, right? So AgGrandize Global is a partnered organization, and we're focused very much on ag businesses, missions, opportunities, and projects. And so we had been invited to Eswatini by a church who has a project in Eswatini. And while we were there, they had connections with Project Canaan, and we were very impressed with the farm operation that was going on Project Canaan. So while we were there, they wanted us to see, right? It's kind of, I think, what maybe they were aspiring to do as well. And so one of the days we were there, we took half a day and drove over and got connected with Project Canaan. Then was able to tour the farm and see the children and the children's homes and everything that's going on there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool. I love that story with you and Christian. So if we have people on the call that know AgGrandize but aren't as familiar with Heart for Africa, we're a nonprofit organization based in the US. We have an entity in Canada, but as Kevin was just talking about, our main mission is in Eswatini. Our mission is to bring hope to the kingdom of Eswatini by fighting hunger, caring for orphans, decreasing poverty, and providing education. We've been farming for just over 10 years now. We've had some successes. We've had some challenges as well. I mean, I think Kevin can speak for all farmers in the world. Farming is not for the faint at heart. And we've been growing vanilla for almost 4 or 5 years now, which has been a really interesting project. And next year, we expect to be harvesting that vanilla, which we can process further. But what's interesting about farming is it actually aligns with 2 pieces of our mission, which is the hunger, of course, because we're growing food, but also poverty through the employment that we're able to generate through our farm, right? So all of the farm hands, as well as our managers that actually make the produce come up out of the ground. Kevin, I'd like to push it over to you. Could you explain to the Heart for Africa side of this call about who AgGrandize is and how does business as a mission fit into your business?
Yeah, so AgGrandize Global is we call ourselves a partnered organization, right? So there's lots of missional type of organizations that are sending organizations. They send people into other countries to do missional work. We're a partnered organization, so we tend to partner with projects like Project Canaan and others around the globe. Our focus is specifically on agricultural businesses missions. So we'll talk a little bit more about what is actually businesses missions later, but we're focused in the ag sector specifically, and try not to get anywhere outside of those bounds. We're really, when it's all said and done, we're really a network of volunteers across the U.S. and other countries as well that have expertise in agriculture and ag business, and then use that expertise to engage with our partners and try to help our partners be successful in achieving their vision. Right.
Mm.
So in a nutshell, that's who we are and what we do.
Right. One of the things that I thought was really interesting, and it's really the essence behind the business as a mission, but it's how you're able to open up doors in, to talk about Jesus in countries where you're not necessarily allowed or it's illegal to. Can you speak a little bit about how your model works on that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to step back just a little bit to business as missions, right? So again, we're focused on the ag part of that specifically, but business as missions is kind of a buzzword right now. It's used a lot, and it kind of has a very wide meaning depending upon who you're talking to. And so it can mean anything from we're going to make money in Jesus' name, which okay, but I'm not sure we're not fully aligned with that for sure. To the other side is it's just creative access, right? We just need an excuse, a reason to be somewhere. It's maybe a very hard to reach part of the world, usually highly Muslim, 1040 window, that type of thing. And so we're tend to be more in the middle, right? So when we talk about business as missions, we're talking about business that is true business, is sustainable, and to be sustainable, it has to be profitable. So if it's not profitable, it's not going to last. And we want the projects that we're engaged with to last when we're gone. When Western support is gone and we're gone, we want those projects to be up and running on their own. And so again, it has a wide range, but we're right in the middle. However, we're not in business just to make profit. There is a bigger mission involved as well, right? And it's to reach the lost, it's to care for the poor, it's to stand up for those who are vulnerable and provide protection for those who are vulnerable. So in some cases, again, usually 1040 window, highly Muslim country, entry into those countries can be very difficult, and it's even more difficult to stay once you get into those countries. From a agricultural business as missions perspective, everybody needs ag, right? And a huge need in the 1040 window specifically is food security. A lot of those countries are poor countries, and their ability to provide enough food for their own communities, their own country is always at risk, and usually sometimes not even they maybe don't have quite the capabilities. So we can actually come in with ag business and provide a value to the country, to the communities that we're in, that is meaningful. And in fact, a lot of times they're willing to overlook the fact that, oh yeah, these are, because they assume if you're from the West, you're Christian, right? So they overlook the fact that these are Christians that are in our community. Well, at least they're Christians in our community that's helping us with our food.
Right. Kevin, you're frozen. I don't know if that's my side or yours. Hey, Kevin, can you hear me? Kevin, we can hear you. Is that Spencer or Kevin?
It can hear you, froze up for a second. So yeah.
Hey, you're not in Kyrgyzstan right now, are you? You're at home?
Yeah, I'm in Kansas. The internet connection in Kyrgyzstan is often better. So, yeah.
Nice, cool. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing that. One of the interesting things I found working with you guys, and one of the stories is not only like coming alongside farmers, but helping understand what are the pieces of the supply chain or the value chain that make sense for that farmer to be involved with. I remember a story you shared in the past about looking at like the feed for pigs, but the farmer was thinking about, how do I raise pigs? But the money was actually in the feed, right? That's where I look at, and maybe you could speak to that, but the relationship that we're starting of Heart for Africa and AgGrandize together is looking at those pieces of the value chain, right? Do we want to be the manufacturer? Do we want to be an aggregator, which we'll get into in a moment? It's a really cool model.
Yeah, so I mean, oftentimes there's some gaps in the supply chain overall. So you can look at any specific area in the supply chain, for example, producing crops, and say, okay, there's opportunity here. But you've also got to look downstream and upstream, right? Downstream, what's the supply input side look like? What's available, and are you going to have everything necessary to raise the crop that you want to raise and do it in a profitable manner? And then, upstream, what does the markets look like, and what does the supply chain look like there? How many middlemen are there? Where is the most of the value being extracted? And that can really vary wildly depending upon where you're at in the world. And so what we found in a lot of cases is that next step up, where there's maybe more value creation and more value extraction in the marketplace, that doesn't necessarily get shared on downstream. So you really have to go in and evaluate the entirety as best you can, at least a level or two up and down from that point of entry. So an example of the hogs, right? Of the raising the pigs, the guy was in love with raising the pigs, right? I want to raise the pigs. This is a great business model. This is we're gonna be able to do this within the community because of that. And then at the end of the day, he's going, I really need to be able to make feed to be able to raise pigs profitably. So what he just told us was the feed production was actually where the money was being made versus,
Right.
the actual production of the pigs themselves. So then you got to ask yourself, well, why do we want to raise pigs? Why would we not be in the feed business and help provide more value into the market in that space?
And that's one I love that about your the advisory services that you guys provide is coming alongside those kind of farmers and helping them realize like the opportunity might not be in the pigs. For us at Heart for Africa, it might not be in the soil that's on Project Canaan, right?
Right.
You were there a few weeks ago, or maybe a few months ago now, and looking in our soil, and we found out that where we currently are growing is mid-level. Is that the right? I mean, I'm trying my best here to become a farmer, as most of the people on this call have known me for a long time. That is not my expertise. But parts of our soil are mid-level and parts are low-level, which makes it challenging to grow, say, a perfect carrot, right? Because there's rocks in the ground and the carrot will grow around the rocks. And it doesn't make that
Yeah.
perfect shape. So just having conversations with you guys has been incredibly eye-opening for us. Tell me about your experience of going to Project Canaan. You've worked with Maganda. You've been in the fields. You've seen what we've done with the vanilla. What was your first reaction when you saw what we were doing?
Yeah. So first reaction was very impressed, right? I mean, you got egg production going on there. At one time, you had dairy, and then I think some good decisions being made
Positive.
to pause that. Looking at the lay of the land. By the way, absolutely beautiful property, right? It's just a beautiful place, very scenic. From an agricultural production standpoint, there's some parts, a lot of variation in the soil type, first off. So there's some parts of the farm that are I would say above average, good productive
Okay.
soils. There is a fair amount that was what I'd say a little below average and a little more challenging. Otherwise, you got to just be sure that you're honing in on the right crops to put
Yeah.
into those fields. As far as the infrastructure itself, very impressive again. Really good irrigation systems that are in place to be able to use it for that foundation to grow a crop off of, and very good facilities then for once harvest takes place, right? For processing or storing the crop and getting it ready to move out, especially the vegetable crops and peppers and things like that that are being raised there now.
Sure. Yeah, and one thing when we started talking at the end of last year was around what should we be growing? So for people on this call that may not be as familiar, we've been doing this for almost a decade. We've tried things like chilies, baby marrows, which are zucchinis, green beans, mini carrots, or sorry, mini corn, like baby corn,
Yeah.
as well as a few other things, and some have been successful, some have not. An example is part of the training that we're doing with our employees is, what to look out for diseases and stuff. Kevin, if you recall earlier this year, we had about a hectare, which is, just over 2 acres of baby marrow that we lost from a mosaic virus, right?
Yeah.
Which is some virus. But as Kevin was explaining, like once you see it, there's things that we can do, preventative things, right? I mean, such as farming, right? It's not necessarily easy. You got to be looking and treat the right things. But that's part of what is a challenge that we have right now is understanding who are the right people that can identify those things and rectify it. Because losing 2 acres of produce that we had buyers for, that's just lost money, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
lost opportunity for us. So that kind of, and I'm going to pivot a little bit here, Kevin, into kind of the future of what we've been talking about with AgGrandize, but it's around how does Project Canaan have as much impact as possible, first of all, because that's the whole point of us being in Eswatini, is to bring hope to the kingdom of Eswatini, right? So the first question is, how do we have as much impact as possible? The second question is, how do we create this in a profitable way where we're generating enough profits to offset the cost of the rest of our mission? As an example, we can't make our own diapers, so we have to buy diapers for all of our children. Well, to buy the diapers, we either need donations from North America or we generate enough money through things like our farm to be able to buy those ourselves. So something we've been talking about is some sort of aggregator model where we would have outgrowers in the community. Kevin, can you explain a little bit about what that model looks like? Not that Project Canaan is exactly that, but we've been having this conversation together.
Well, yeah. So, an outgrower model would be working with local producers within the community, right? And helping them to raise crops that have maybe a little more value and extract that value from the marketplace, right? So, one of the strong points that strengths that Project Canaan has is it's gone through the process of becoming certified to be able to export, right? And
Global Gap
so,
certified.
yeah, GAP certified. So it allows more value to be added potentially to a crop. If you're able to export it, if you get the right crops. So if you can work with the community of producers, not just try to produce it all yourself at Project King, but work with community of farmers and the farmers in the community and help them realize some of that value as well, as long as they follow the practices and meet the standards and are able to provide the quality product that's needed in that case, then that's a way that engages the community, one, and de-risk what Project King is doing. So your baby marrows, your 2 hectares you lost that you had buyers for already, if you have other producers producing as well, it doesn't sting as bad. It still stings, but not as bad, and you're able to help be a consistent supplier, to an end buyer a little bit better that way. So it's working with those producers, helping them to meet the standards and raise the right crops at the right quality, and then aggregating that crop into one place
Right.
where you have a volume that creates significance with the end buyer, to where you can then extract as much value as you possibly can from the market, and then sharing that value back through the production chain.
And that's where a lot of that impact comes from. So imagine, you're a farmer in the rural area, you have half an acre. If we were able to get the fertilizers and the pesticides that they need to be successful, as well as the expertise, right, where
Yep.
we could come alongside them and help them, we believe that we would actually be able to employ more people, right? So Project Canaan is 2,500 acres total right now, but we can't necessarily grow everything on all of it. It's very mountainous in places. However, if we had tens or hundreds of farmers in an outgrower model, we might be able to provide more jobs and income to rural parts of Eswatini through a model like this versus trying to do it all ourselves, where we open up hundreds of acres on Project Canaan. We bring in people to come and work the fields. They earn an income, but this is actually almost teaching employment or entrepreneurship by coming alongside them and assisting them with something that they might already be good at. They just need someone to come alongside and invest in them. Is that fair?
I think you're right on target there, right? I mean, you said entrepreneurship, right? I mean, every farm is this business, right? If providing they're producing more than what they need to sustain their own families and that can sell to access. So you're creating it. The model creates maybe hundreds of small businesses that are then more profitable and earning more dollars that they can then use to support their own families and their own communities, right? Those dollars get recycled back into communities when that happens. So it's a great way to stimulate a very micro economy, if you will, in an area.
Yeah. And again, it's all about for us, it's all about the impacts, right? We're competing with for-profit businesses that are farmers local to us. That's great. But for us, it's about employment. For us, it's about generating the profits for our mission, right? For caring for the kids, for the other entities on Project Canaan that offset costs. Yeah.
So think about that, Spencer, right? So this is a win-win, right? You're able to help the local communities in Eswatini and the local farmers within those communities, therefore helping those communities to become more profitable. By the way, we also know because of the processing facilities that you have, the packing house and things like that, there's a huge harvest loss every year. And all this stuff comes out of the field at the exact same time. So again, utilizing those assets, not just for the farm at Project Canaan, but for those surrounding farmers and allowing them to benefit from that as well. Right. And that's gonna bless them. And at the same time, you do it profitably, right? I mean, you have to make a profit or it's not sustainable in that case. So you do it profitably, and then those profits then help Project Canaan as a whole in this vision around the children there as well. So it's a win-win-win for everybody.
If we could get our pack house to 90% utilization, or 100%, where we have 3 shifts a day processing food all day, we're global gap certified, as Kevin was saying, so we can ship internationally. But right now, our pack house is almost too large for the amount of produce that we grow ourselves, right? So why not open it up to other people? And certainly from a global gap perspective, we would have to have all the traceability. We're making the assumptions that we would figure all that out. But the other interesting piece here is, how do we grow produce items that we could then add other value to? So take chilies, right? We could sell the fresh chilies, but if something were to happen where we don't have buyers, we could potentially dry out the chilies. Now we have another product that has a longer shelf life. We could crush those chilies into chili powder or to red pepper flakes. I don't know what all the different things are, but it allows us to diversify our risks with the inventory by extending the shelf life, finding more buyers, but also just having something to do, right? We don't want to be wasting food in a country where people are dying of starvation, right? We want to be good stewards with every single piece of this process. And so making sure that we have buyers for the fresh items, but at some point, having a manufacturing facility where we have enough throughput, we're employing so many farmers that are relying on us as their single buyer, but we're also diversifying our risks with the stuff that we can create, right? I love this model. Kevin, I'm interested from your perspective to work with Heart for Africa, because we are very forward about our Christian roots and why we are doing what we're doing, which I believe is different from a lot of the partners that you work with internationally because of where they are. How does our model and working with us kind of work with you guys? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So we absolutely we're all about working with faith-based organizations for a greater cause. With Heart for Africa, it's as our communications team would say, it's so nice to be able to communicate more freely and openly about some of the impacts from a spiritual standpoint or a faith-based standpoint. For
Yeah.
a lot of our partners, we have to be very careful about what we say and how we say it and things. So it's just a little different feel, but it's kind of refreshing to be able
Yeah.
to be that much more transparent.
Yeah, good. No, I'm glad. And I recognize that, we're fortunate to be working in a more or less Christian country, right? With
Mm.
Eswatini, most people that we work with are believers, but there's always an opportunity for us to share even more. And I'm glad that you guys can do that with us. Um, I kind of want to talk about recent events for a moment, and just for the rest of the people on the
Yeah.
call, if you have questions, please, use the Q&A function. The Strait of Hormuz being closed has significantly impacted the world's oil supply, which I'm sure many people on this call have recognized, but also fertilizer. Can you share
Right.
some of those statistics you were just sharing with me about India and the cost of fertilizer going up like 40% here in the US?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, even on our farm, we've seen the cost of fertilizer jump up significantly since the strait was shut down, and so we're seeing increases, particularly around nitrogen and phosphorus type fertilizers, jump up about 40%. Potash is up a little bit, not as much, but nitrogen is like the key nutrient in a lot of crops, not every crop, but a lot of crops. So a lot more nitrogen used than anything. So here in the U.S., right, we're a pretty wealthy country, so we can just keep bidding up and getting the product, even if we're not profitable or as profitable because of it. In other countries that the economy is not near as robust, a lot of these small shareholder producers don't have that ability. So at the end of the day, they end up going with either much less product or none at all when that cost runs out. And so then, even in India, I just heard recently that the Indian government was asking their farmers to only put on half as much fertilizer as they have in the past. And
Yeah.
so you you can say, well, okay, big deal. Well, the global food supply is a fragile thing, right? And so you start having a large country like India applying half as much fertilizer, and they see their yields reduced by 20-30% right off the bat before anything else happens because of it, possibly even more. That can start to put a strain on the global food supply right off the bat. So
Right.
yeah. So you've always got these type of conditions and things that are happening in the marketplace that's a lot of times outside the farmer's control, but you have to manage and deal with.
Mhm. When I was out on your farm, how many acres are you overseeing there? 40,000?
Yeah, not that many. Yeah, we got about 9,000 acres of
9,000.
corn, wheat, and soybeans. Yeah.
When we were talking, I was so impressed with all of the technology that you are using, as well as just the forecasting of like farming futures and these kind of things. And I mean, of course, this industry has been around for a long, long time, but there seems to be new things coming out more frequently, I guess. I don't know, as every industry with AI and all these kind of things. One of the machines that you were showing me was like lightning in a bottle, essentially, which was creating nitrogen, if I recall. And if you could just share that with everybody on this call, I think it's really cool. But it's a way to diversify, again, the risk with, fertilizers and stuff, no? Or at least
Yeah.
add to it.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I can geek out on the technical
You like
side
to
of
experiment, which is
of
pretty cool.
farming
And I
all
think,
the time, anytime you
yeah,
want to. But yeah, this is a very interesting machine. Basically, what happens in nature, right? Our air is like 70% nitrogen, right? So in nature, when you have a thunderstorm with lightning, that lightning causes the molecules to fracture and it actually allows nitrogen to be trapped within the water, within the rain. That happens. So basically, what this machine is doing, and I'm talking very simple terms because I can't get any more technical than that myself, but what it's doing is it has these little cylinders that is creating little constant lightning storms and then dripping water, very clean. You got to clean the water, take all the impurities out before it comes through. Very clean water through there all the time. And it's basically taking nitrogen out of the atmosphere and putting it into the water. You store it properly and so forth. You now have a nitrogen source that's a lot more environmentally friendly and is much cheaper than buying commercial produced nitrogen. Now, there's some challenges with it, right? So you got to figure out where it works and where it doesn't. You gotta test all out. But that type of technology can be a game changer, especially in smaller, more developing countries where for access to some of the things that we have access to here is much tougher, much harder, and more expensive. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and when like supply shocks happen, like right now with fertilizer increasing, like you said, we're a relatively affluent country. Well, I mean, relatively, we're definitely an affluent country here. We just pay more, but other places they just can't get it. They can't get gasoline. They can't get fertilizer. So being able to diversify themselves would help them be successful. I'm going to jump into some questions in a moment. But one of the things with Project Canaan that we're trying to do is regenerative farming principles, right? And that's something that you guys are helping us think through. So can you just do a quick like high level for the people on this call? What does that mean?
Yeah. So again, farming at its core is a manufacturing business, right? You're manufacturing this product, which is a crop, using the soil that you're planting into and extracting nutrients out of the soil. You're using the rain or water that is provided by Mother Nature and sunlight. You combine that together with your plants that you're putting in and you're producing that's your product. Now, unlike most manufacturing, right, that's under a roof, you have all these environmental things that keep happening that make it very challenging, right? It's either too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry, bugs, diseases, everything else, like what happened with the baby marrows. And so it just creates an extra layer of challenges there. So if you think about then the soil being the foundation, it's the foundation of your manufacturing plant. Having good, healthy soil is paramount to having a good, resilient manufacturing plant and being able to mitigate risk and to create a more stable production of a crop. So regenerative ag, what regenerative ag does is it takes a look at, okay, how do we keep increasing the health of the soil? And within this soil are billions of microbes, billions of fungi and bacteria, good fungi, good bacteria that are processing the nutrients within that soil and making them available to the plants. They actually help move nutrients around within the soil as well. And so regenerative ag is about saying, okay, can we take some regenerative ag practices and start implementing them at all levels of the production to help restore or increase soil health. So it's things like creating compost, which we go, oh, that makes sense, right? Project Canaan has those large poultry barns. So it's like taking the litter from the poultry barns, putting it on the farm, and using that as a source of soil nutrients. When you do that, you're also bringing over organic matter and good bacteria that are good for the soil. So you get more than just the nutrients that comes from the litter. You get the right activities happening in soil. So then what that does is that builds a soil structure so that when it rains, it captures more rainwater rather than runoff. It holds the soil in place and creates a healthier crop to begin with. There's other practices such as cover crops and mulching and things like that. Foundations for Farming is an organization that we work with that has a trainer there in Eswatini, and I know has been out to the farm and starting to have some discussions there as well. And they're really big in perfecting some of these practices, especially for what's available locally, right? Because not every place is the same. So you got to take what are the resources that are available locally, and how do we use those to improve soil health and then create more resiliency in the production. So I hope that makes sense. I get too.
It's great. What I love, I
Yeah.
mean, it's this whole ecosystem, right? So whether it's chicken manure, we also happen to have a worm pit, right, where we can put in
Yeah.
organic material. They process it. You keep talking about how it's a manufacturing business, and it's all dependent on the soil and the quality of the soil. So how do we treat it with as much respect and put as many natural things that we have at our disposal, right? We don't have to buy chicken poop. We've got 5,000 chickens every single day creating this
Yeah.
byproduct for us.
Yeah.
How do we take that and use it, right? And then being able to, with this outgrower model as well, be able to provide some of that green manure, as I've heard people call it, to them as well. Kevin, that was awesome. So some of the questions that are coming in, I'm going to start with the first one, which is around when does Project Canaan expect to turn the farm back on, so to speak? So the farm, for those of you that don't know, we have paused our outside farming, if you will, our traditional farming. The baby marrows, as an example. We have paused that. We are also growing vanilla in our greenhouse, which is continuing to grow. We are not pausing that because it takes so long for the plants to actually flower. So we are keeping that going. However, the outside stuff, we're pausing. My goal, working with AgGrandize, I believe that this is very much possible, but our goal is by the end of this year to have a business strategy created, which would allow us to go after this aggregator model that Kevin was explaining earlier. So by January 1st, our target is to know what that looks like, which is what products are we going to grow and in what markets are we going to sell. So right now we're looking at selling in South Africa. We're also looking at selling in some European countries, but we want to cross-reference which ones have the highest profitability, but also work for our region, right? So there's a few different growing regions in Eswatini. How do we work with farmers, and be able to buy things that are going to sell for more expensive in Amsterdam, say, or the Netherlands or in Germany, because it's off season for them. So we want to have a real business strategy for this before we turn the lights back on. But our goal is by the end of this year to have that figured out. Now, the dairy, I think that's going to take a little bit longer just because we've had some significant challenges as well as this foot and mouth disease that's going on in South Africa right now. I believe it's a good time for us to pause. We have a really great vendor right down the road from us, which is Swazi Milk, where we are able to buy all of the milk that our children need right now, and more actually, because we want to create mozzarella cheese and some other products as well. So with that being said, hopefully by the end of this year, that's our goal. So if you have any further questions on that, feel free to reach out to me directly. We have put together an agriculture team, if you will, which is primarily working with AgGrandize, but just looking for experts to come alongside us to help us figure out what are those next pieces to this puzzle. So great question. Okay, question for you, Kevin. When you walked Project Canaan's land, was there a moment where you saw real potential? Not just the challenges. What did you see that made you think that this could actually work on Project Canaan?
Oh yeah. So yeah, so let me clarify, right? So there's always challenges in farming. It doesn't matter how good a setup you had to begin with or how good your soil might be to begin with. You're gonna in farming, it's a series of challenges. So if you don't like challenges, you probably shouldn't be in farming because it's going to happen every day. So don't take challenges that are identified as necessarily negative. I would say this is like I said, it's a beautiful property. I absolutely love being there. I look forward to the next time I can go back. The soils do have good opportunities for the right crops. I think there's been, like most farm operations, there's sometimes be as a tendency to get too broad. I think focusing in on, like Spencer was saying, on 3 or 4 crops that work well in that environment and climate and soil type will help bring success, and that's yet to be determined. The infrastructure there is phenomenal. It's really hard to find that good of an infrastructure anywhere that I've seen so far. My limited experience in Eswatini, as well as any place else that I've been, that's more of a developing country. So I think that from the irrigation setup, the standards that are in place for producing quality products. The greenhouse with the vanilla, all those things are very, very good advantages for Project Canaan and the farm there.
Sure. And
Yeah.
I will say, I mean, with our donors, we've been very blessed to be able to fundraise for a lot of those assets that you're talking about. So the
Yeah.
farm managers building, the pack house. You also said that we have some, like as a part of our irrigation, we have some sort of system where we could put fertilizer into the water and specifically direct it to fields. Can you speak to that for a sec? I didn't even know we had this.
Yeah. That is a fertigation system, so you can inject the fertilizer right into the irrigation water, and it's going through a lot of it's going through a drip system. Some of it's a sprinkler system, but a lot of it going through a drip. When you can do that, what you're doing is you're placing that nutrient right where it needs to be, which helps you use less and get more benefit. So it's a great setup. I think it's missing a piece or two to be actually be able to execute with it, but it's 95% of it's there. So again, another exciting benefit to Project Canaan there.
Absolutely. Thanks for explaining that. Another question, what is happening to the employees? So we've had to retrench a lot of our employees on the farm, which means laying them off, unfortunately. Some of them we've been able to move to other parts of their property, whether it be the eggs or let's see, to a mechanic shop, but most are winding down. Now, that's obviously not good news, and it's a really hard decision, especially when there's a 70% unemployment rate in this country. We take these things very seriously, but that's again where we start with the mission. What's our mission? To bring hope to this kingdom of Eswatini, and the responsibility that we have for the 461 children that we're the legal guardians of, that has to come first. So now we pause the intake of children, as many of you know. We are working day and night to be able to open, those gates again and be able to accept more children. But also taking this farming business very seriously and creating a strategy for the farm. So if we're able to do that by the end of this year, we'll be able to hopefully bring all those people back and more, because we were able to pause this thing, right? So sometimes you just got to take a breath and figure out the direction we need to go. And that's why we're very blessed to be working with an organization like AgGrandize, right? I mean, I don't think it's just happenstance that we happened to cross paths at the end of last year. My mom was speaking at your event, and just being able to start this relationship with you guys, to knock on our door on Project Canaan and say, hey, we heard about you. We were in the country. Can we see? And now we're working together. I think it's so cool. I'm very happy for it, Kevin.
Yeah, I agree. It's been a very good relationship for us. And your mom coming and speaking at our event, Janine coming and speaking there, that was a chance for us to kind of expand within our AgGrandize network other opportunities that are out there in agriculture. So we've been so focused in like the 1040 window, and a lot of our partners and projects are there, that this gave more breadth to how God can use the organization in other ways as well. So
Absolutely.
We really appreciate that.
It's cool. I mean, I was just at this Lions Den conference in Dallas, and one of the biggest takeaways was, how do we partner together to do more? Because one of us can't do it all, and together, if we work and really focus on what we're good at, we're not the farmers, right? My dad has read a lot of books on farming and worm pits and stuff like that, but even he would say he's not a farmer. Let's partner with you guys to come alongside us so we can have as much impact as quick as possible. Listen, Kevin, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. For everyone on this call, thanks for joining. This is really fun for me, selfishly, because I talk about this every day, and even on this call, I learned something from Kevin. And I really appreciate you all joining. We will be doing more of these webinars. So if you have any ideas on things that you're interested in that Heart for Africa is doing, I'm sure AgGrandize would love to do them as well. Feel free to reach out to Matt or Kevin directly. But we want to make sure that we're bringing you guys content that you find interesting, and it really brings you up to speed on what's going on in Eswatini. This mission that you've been supporting for weeks, if not many, many years, and we would not be able to do it without you guys. So thank you so much for all joining. We will be sending out a recording of this if there's a piece of it that you wanted to hear back. Kevin, Really appreciate your time. Excited to turn this farm back on, and thanks for inviting AgGrandize to be here as well.
Yeah, thank you. The number one thing that we look at when we're evaluating a relationship, and if it's one we should go forward with or not, is what is the mission of the partner that we're evaluating. We absolutely believe in your mission and your vision that you have at Project Canaan specifically, and so we're excited to be a part of that and feel honored and privileged to be a part of that. So thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much. I hope everyone has a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.